So, whether you're dealing with clinical obesity or if you just have a few extra pounds of stubborn body fat that you can't seem to get rid of, today's podcast is going to cover my top 5 things that you need to look at in order to be sure that you're going to be successful with your body fat loss and your weight management for the long term. If you could, please be sure to click like and subscribe so you support the channel and get this video out to more people. That said, let me dive right in with my very first issue for you, okay? And that's if you're looking at the scale, at a regular scale, and you're looking for weight loss to equate to fat loss, that is generally a mistake. It might not be a mistake at the early part of your journey, but at some point in the process, that is going to throw you off. Because what happens is you're looking to lose about 1 to 2 pounds per week, but you can also gain about 1 to 2 pounds between bone mineral density, water weight, and muscle tissue. And so you're going to have this kind of flux anyway. And when you're looking at a week and you're expecting to see the scale show you a lesser number to indicate body fat loss, it doesn't really make sense because you could lose, say, 2 pounds of fat and gain back 2 pounds of water, bone, and muscle. And therefore you think that what you're doing is not working when in fact it's working perfectly. So that's the first thing I'd suggest is don't use the scale as a metric. For some people, it makes more sense to look at how their clothes are fitting. In other cases, you want to use a body composition device. There are some scales that can do that pretty accurately, but this really depends on the person and it depends upon what kind of access they have to different tools and methods. I definitely don't suggest using a regular scale. I think that's what really throws people off and they don't realize how misled they're being by what they're seeing on the scale. Now, the second thing that I'm going to recommend that you address is any belief that healthy food is also going to relate to weight loss food. This is where a lot of people really go wrong. So what happens is they'll think that by eating an apple and by eating broccoli and eating generally healthier foods, and then by staying away from junk food, that they're going to have a long-term sustainable weight loss program. Now, those things are great starts, certainly, but there's so much more to it than just avoiding junk food and eating healthier food. What we see in a lot of studies is that people end up eating about the same or more total calories when they make the jump to healthier food because they feel like, hey, I'm staying away from the junk food and this is healthy so I can eat lots of it. And that doesn't work out terribly well because ultimately you need that caloric deficit to really get your body fat to get burned off. And so, yeah, the healthy food is better for the heart, the lungs, the joints, etc. It's probably going to give you more exercise capacity. But at the end of the day, if you're finding that you're not getting the calorie deficit, you're probably not going to lose body fat like you want to. All right, moving on to our third item here, it's protein intake. Now, this is the big one because when we restrict calories, we usually also want to be bumping up our protein intake. Chances are that if you're on a weight loss journey or about to start one, that your current protein intake is already really too low. In fact, that's probably part of the reason as to why you've gained excess body fat in the first place. So if you're already eating too few grams of protein per day, too few calories from protein per day, and now we're about to shorten your total food window even more, we're about to limit your calories even more, it might seem counterintuitive or almost impossible to also increase the amount of protein that you're getting in, but yet that's exactly what we need to do. And believe me, it's not nearly as hard as it sounds. I know this sounds like doom and gloom to some of you, but the truth is it's not that difficult. You just need the right careful planning. You need to make sure that you're choosing foods that are high in good quality protein and at the same time that are still going to help keep your total caloric intake lesser than what you're burning off each day. All right, that said, let's get into our third item here. And now that brings us to total calories consumed. Now, a lot of people don't really want to count calories. There's a big push against counting calories because they don't want people to start obsessing over numbers, right? You hear a lot of coaches say, I don't want you to obsess over the number. Well, you don't have to obsess over a number to still keep track of it and make sure that it's serving you effectively, right? And so what I think happens a lot of times is people are so afraid of counting calories and falling into that world that then they do something that's just as damaging, and that's they just keep saying, okay, I'm eating healthy. I think I'm eating less than I used to. And yet there's no real calculation going on to prove that. So they'll assume they're eating less than usual. They're finding themselves hungry more frequently than they used to. But maybe in the end, there is either no calorie deficit or it's a really small one, like 1 or 2 or maybe 300 calories per day. And the truth is, there's nothing wrong with that, except that if you're only losing, let's say, 200 to 300 calories per day in calorie deficit, then there's a very good chance that you're going to feel discouraged because the weight loss is taking such a long time. And then once you feel discouraged, things tend to fall apart. Your exercise falls apart, you're less motivated, and pretty soon you start wanting to give up. That's a really common scenario. Now, I've got one last piece of advice for you in this list of five, and this is a big one. You've got to get to know the calories per minute, the number of calories per minute that you're burning in exercise. This is huge, and a lot of personal trainers don't even know this. I've interviewed countless trainers who don't know how to figure this out. The reason why this is so important is here's how people get discouraged, okay? They'll exercise for an hour. And in their mind, it's an hour. That's a long time, and that should be really fat utilizing and fat burning. But then when you start to look at how many calories did they actually burn, you realize, oh, they were burning 2 to 3 calories a minute for maybe 45 of those minutes. And a lot of those minutes were even a little bit less than that sometimes. And so when you really add it all up, you realize they didn't really burn a significant amount of calories. They burned only a small percentage of that from stored fat. And now in the end, this hour that the client or the person was thinking was so productive is actually not very productive at all. And you would need many of those before you even start to put a dent in your body fat. And so I don't want to be discouraging at all, but what I want you to understand is that if you can get a better grasp on truly how many calories per minute you're actually burning and roughly what percentage of them is likely to come from stored fat, then you're going to have a much better understanding of how long the process is going to take and how this works. Look, as personal trainers and clinical weight loss experts, one of the key things we do is we look at what a program is going to look like to create a calorie deficit each week. And that calorie deficit isn't just in terms of food, but it's also in terms of how much exercise you're doing. And so I find when people aren't doing well, they will come to me and say, Val, I don't know what's wrong. I'm exercising 3 hours a week. And I'll say, well, wait, it's not how many hours a week you do, it's how many calories per minute. That's what's actually going to matter. And then I'll say, what are some things that you're doing? And oftentimes you find out they're doing things that are really not fat burning at all. And so that's where we need to start tweaking and modifying exercises and changing intensities, etc. So that's a big one, that last one there about calories per minute. I highly recommend you do seek out a qualified coach, either here at Perfect Personal Training or elsewhere with someone who really knows their stuff. Because again, a lot of trainers don't understand that concept and they just start guessing their way through it and their clients are not losing weight. So anyway, look, if you want to get my help, you can reach out to me directly. My websites are here in the description, as is my phone number. You can call me or text. You can also get my help by going to this quiz that I've put here in the description. There's a quiz that's asking about how good your weight loss is likely to be. If you answer those questions, it's going to give you some great information right away. And then I'll get in touch with you myself and I'll also explain a little bit further and in more personalized detail what I think is going wrong in your program and where some things are going really right and what you want to keep in your program. So anyway, you can visit that quiz in the description as well. If you have questions, please comment down below. As always, I'm looking forward to your health and wellness success.